right, everybody, welcome back. Orange Gum, Wendy T, and Hope Skibitsky, your rhyming duo here. So, having a little bit of self-deprecation. Here I am staring into the camera. And I don't know if you guys know, but see these little, like, what I like to refer to as my eye teeth, because they look like teeth pointing in the upward direction. I it is so noticeable on a camera. And I know that if you're listening to this, you can't see it, but I have this thing with my eyes that I have both a hooded eye and a big eyelid, I guess. And so whenever I do my makeup, I have to draw this line that covers both sides. So every time I blink, all I can see is my eye teeth. All I can see is my eye teeth. I'm like, oh, the glories of getting old.
So I often remind Hope that if she was talking to herself, like she should try and put that person as one of her friends because she would talk to her friends much nicer than she ever talks about her to herself, because otherwise she would have no friends.
No, that's true, right? You've got to tell the truth, but you got to be nice about it. And so for me, I have to remind myself I'm getting older, right? Gravity is not my friend. It just happens. And I'm trying to do it gracefully, but it still sucks. Like you look in a mirror and you're like, what is happening? These things didn't used to sit where they sit now.
So, I mean, I get that, right? So I used to love doing the eyeliner like that, right? And then so now I notice that when I blink, sometimes the eyeliner like leaves another line. Wait, I have this great Peloton coach who talks about you glow differently when you're loved. And so
Mm.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh, it's true. When somebody like says good morning to you or pays attention to you, you just have this different glow about you. And she's like, make that person yourself. And I
Mm.
thought that was just so, you know, just
Yeah.
insightful, right? And so make that person yourself.
Thanks, honey. You're
And
100% right.
you glow differently. So that,
Yeah.
the positive affirmation and positive self-talk and that kind of stuff is important. And also the people in your life who are truth tellers, but we talked about this before, be kind in that delivery and still be honest, but be kind. And, we've both seen this before where somebody sometimes doesn't have that good favor in your life. And so sometimes those seasons are a little rough to bear, right? So, mhm.
So how does that happen? I'm sure everybody can relate. There's a time when you fall out of love as friends, and so sometimes those things fizzle. And it hurts. Either one party or the other did something, or one party or the other misconstrued something, or sometimes it's just a thing that used to be isn't anymore, right?
Right, right. And so, I feel like I have my 9 level in relationship breakups. For those of you who aren't military,
You have to explain that because not everybody understands
that's
nine
right.
level. What is that?
It's like I'm an expert in breakups.
So for context, right? When you've just started, you're a 0. When you're going through your initial tech training, you're a 1. When you're in your initial on the job training, you're a 3. When you become one of those people that can help train other people and you're like the early stage subject matter expert, you're a 5. When you become the technical expert, you're a 7. And then when you're like the guru of, you're a 9. So there you are. Wendy believes she's the guru of relationship breakups. All right. So
Well, I had a friend who was going through a thing and was like, "You never give me any relationship advice." And I said, "Oh, well, trust and believe that if you're taking relationship advice from me, that's like getting tech support from a caveman." So the relationship breakups, I mean, I have so many great friends, but sometimes there's seasons, and you go through those. And so we kind of wanted to dive into, the friendship breakup and navigating that loss and moving on. And if that has happened, how do you kind of survive that? Because if you're like me, you're in an estrogen bomb, there's feelings involved. And if you're like Hope and no feelings, then you you just move
I have
on.
feelings. Anger is a feeling.
You just move on. Didn't we just see that video clip?
Which
We,
one?
what was it? She was saying you don't have to forgive and forget. You can
Oh,
just move on.
yeah. For all us T Swifty fans in the world, my daughter's a T Swifty fan. Taylor Swift was being interviewed and she was saying very candidly, like people say all the time, you have to forgive and forget so that you can just move on. And she's like, negative ghost writer. None of that has to happen. You can not forgive, you cannot forget, and you can still move on. And so I think, to each their own. For me, I simply choose to, trim the things out of my life that don't serve me well, right? I am a 100% believer that, if you don't need the extra stuff, donate it. If it's garbage, throw it away. And if it's a relationship that's dragging you down, hurting you, or making you feel worse, like out of self-preservation, adios, muchachos.
Yeah. So I think that the one of the things that I've heard you say, and it was a long time ago when you were doing emotional intelligence training, was that IQ will get you hired, but EQ can get you fired. I have
Yeah.
used that line 100 times, and I actually just was uh, doing this college class where I was giving that feedback to a student and kind of unpacking that a little bit, right? So in friendship, right, having that emotional intelligence so first, address it, right? If the friendship matters to you, like talk about it, right? So kind of just say, hey, can we talk about this, right? Because the other person might kind of actually just say, like, oh, I on your shit list now too, right? And
Yeah.
just
Well, we have a really bad habit of making assumptions that somebody else knew they did the thing they did.
so like for example, there was a conversation you and I had, and then like when we hung up the phone, I called back and I was just like, hey, I don't ever want you to feel like this,
Yeah.
right?
Well, so
Yeah.
because I don't consider myself a whiner and I don't like being that person that every time I talk to you, I've got something, bad to say. But when I've got to get something off my chest because I've had a bad day or somebody treated me wrong and I don't know how to deal with it, I need somebody to tell that to. And you're my human. And so if I call you and I say, hey, look, like things are going awry. And what you try to do, which I appreciate you for, is put a positive spin on it. Well, here's how you could see it instead. And so, but that's that like nail thing, right? When you're trying to give somebody a solution when all they want you to do is listen. And so sometimes I just wanted you to hear that I was struggling with a thing and just
Sure.
be with me, not
Mhm.
try to fix it, just be with me, because I can get through that, I think. And if I couldn't, I'd ask, but I just wanted you to be with me. I needed somebody to be with me. And so you being the like amazing, perky, happy, like loving thing you are, would say, well, honey, here's how you could see it differently. And I felt discounted almost. And so, I just said to you, like, I never want you to think that I'm just whining in your ear, but sometimes I just want you to listen. Right. And we got off the phone and I thought, golly, like she's my person. If I can't talk to her, who do I talk to? And you called me back and I was like, like you called me back. You knew I needed you to tell me that, please just keep telling me I'm your person. Like I'll shut my mouth and open my ears. That's that ratio people talk about all the time, right? Like you get two of these and one of these, use them in proportion.
Right, right. And so I feel like reframing is something that I try and do instinctively. We're Hope and I are both MRTs, master resilience trainers, where we work a lot on reframing and trying to find the good in things, like hard things. And so I feel like that's instinctive thought processes for me. But at the same time, it is something that you just need to like sometimes say, these are the hard things.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I need to call her and tell her, like, I am always going to be the person that can hear your hard things. And that will be first and foremost. And it was important to talk through that. And it was important that you told me this is how I feel.
Yeah, because again, I can't expect you to read my mind. I mean, like you don't have the, I would say, luxury, but misery of living in this tangled mess. And so, if I don't tell you what I'm thinking, how can I know you knew? And I can make my assumptions. I could walk away and say, well, she must have known she hurt my feelings, or she must have known what I needed. Well, how do you know if I don't tell you? Like
Mhm.
none of us have that 9 level in clairvoyance. And so we can't just assume.
I'm the guru of clairvoyance. Right. And so, but sometimes people just don't, they're not going to get there. They're not interested in coming back around and in meeting you where I need to be met.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a relationship that's just no longer going to add value. Or maybe I've grown in a different direction
Yeah.
and I just don't see where this is, is going. And I would say all my friendships just are, again, wildly people who are wildly different from me. So I don't know that it's just that we have things in common, because I don't think I have all that many things in common with most of my friends.
Actually, you and I are rather different. I mean, we are wildly different. The more things that we like peel the onion on, we're like, I mean, I don't know that we could be much more different,
True. Yeah. So
which I love about you because you're going to see things so different from me and you're going to assess things different than I do. But not everybody is that way. And so sometimes when you realize that that friendship is no longer friendship, sometimes you realize that either it's gonna fizzle and go away, or you need to just say, hey, look, this was great when I needed it, and now it's not great. And either we can work on it, or we can decide that we can
mhm.
go our own way.
Right. I think that's true in lots of different areas of life, right? Whether it's a relationship, a friendship, a situation at work, I mean, so
Mm.
first and foremost, I think it's really important, like that area of communication. So first, like, have a trusted space to talk about it,
Yep.
right? Because if I care about the actual relationship, then I'm going to be fair and give it a chance.
And you know what I think? Sometimes we get into this bad habit of believing that because I've had an experience like that I can speak to every experience. Like I can tell you exactly how you should do that thing, when different strokes for different folks, man. Like what worked for you may not work for me. What happened in that time might be way different than what's happening in this time. And as you said, that can be true in work relationships too. But if it happens in a work relationship, what do we do? Because even if we are no longer like more than workmates, like we go back to now, hey, it's just going to be I see you in the office or talk to you on the virtual platform.
Mhm.
How do we handle that? What do we do with that? Because like, sometimes we file hurt feelings reports because you were the person I told my deepest darkest to, and now we're,
It's
you know
different.
yeah, we've shelved that part of our lives.
hmm And in the work circles, sometimes, like, depending on the size of the organization, that can be a little bit challenging, right? So, some for our careers, some of those circles are small, some of them are big, and sometimes you'll run into each other again, and so that can be awkward. But again, if you have the fair conversation, I feel like I've done my part. Yeah, I've given it a chance,
Yeah.
right? And so there should be no wondering what happened there.
Hey, I've
So
always been credited with never leaving people wondering what I'm thinking. Good, bad, and indifferent.
what I'm thinking shows up on my face.
Ooh, my face will tell on me. It's not the truth. Yeah. And I mean, but sometimes we have friendships that we really, really want to keep, either because it's the thing we've known longer than anything else, or because it was the thing that got us through something, or that old adage, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
Like, how do we know though if a friendship has dwindled to the point of irreparable? And then what do we do about it? Do you think we should have like the honest conversation of, hey, look, I know we're going in our separate ways, but I will forever keep your confidences confident. And I
Hmm.
just ask you to kind of do the same. Do you do that?
I I guess I have never done that. I just have always, like, I feel confident that I've never betrayed trust,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like I would hope that's the same for other people, and I don't know. I just kind of trust and believe that the universe takes care of that, and karma is real.
Uh, yeah.
I mean,
Like, do you think that's a place people should visit? Do you think
no.
that, as we decide that we're going to part ways, that we just make sure we, you know, understand, hey, I'm giving you the readout. So if you live in a classified environment, you leave that particular classified environment, you do a readout to make sure that you understand, hey, you no longer have access to this thing. But I need you to remember that when we signed the non-disclosure agreement walking into this, you
Right.
agreed that this was going to stay like within you. And so in this friendship analogous and we're saying, hey, we're going to part ways, we're going to do it amicably, you just expect, do you just expect, or do you make sure that that person knows, hey, look, I hope you will continue to take my confidences to the grave, because even though we're going in different directions, should we revisit that? Should we talk about that?
I've never thought about that. I would I would have a hard time imagining anybody saying like, I'm not going to agree to that. That would be really, really ballsy of somebody to
I don't know,
say
there's some
because
assholes.
I'm like, you don't know my friends. They'll all bring shovels.
I say that all the time. I'm like, you don't even have to tell me like why. You just call and say, meet me at these coordinates and bring a shovel. And I'm like, on my way.
Right. Right. So I just don't know that somebody would say out loud that they wouldn't. People wouldn't be that brazen.
Oh, that's fair, right? Not everybody. And even if they say it, would they do it?
Right. That's what I mean is I don't think people would admit to that right out loud. So I don't know that I would actually talk through that because that would just be, you know, that would
You
be
would hope,
keeping out.
right? You would hope that everybody would have that thing in them that says, that was told to me in confidence, or that was that was given to me in a time when we were close
Mhm.
enough they felt compelled to share. And you would hope that they would just have that intestinal fortitude to kind of, I'm gonna package that thing up. I don't need it anymore, but it isn't mine to share with anybody else.
I'll tell you this, like I have learned so much about friendship from you, where how you have responded to some things when people ask, right? Where I'll give you a great example. When I went through a hard thing and people were asking about it, your response was, "Have you asked her?" And so I thought that was just like a great response, like it's simple. It doesn't share anything about what I'm going through. And it really holds people to account.
Yeah, I learned it from John Maxwell.
There you go.
Leaders
So
ask great questions. And so it's a pretty simple question. Like they're like, how is she? And I'm like, phone number hadn't changed.
that
She's
is exactly what I say now because I run into people all the time that say, "How's Hope?" And I'm like, "Well, her phone number hasn't changed."
on
So,
social media, hit her up, right?
mhm.
And I think sometimes people don't know how to approach things when someone is going through a hard thing. Like they know they're going through a hard thing and they think, maybe I need to let them through that hard thing and then I'll check on them, or I'm going to check on them from a distance. And so I would love us to dig into that sometime. How do you know if it's okay to reach out to somebody if they're maybe even suspected to not be okay? I would love us to dig into that sometime. But back into this thing that we're talking about, when sometimes, friendships fizzle or friendships break up or friendships aren't friendships. And some of those friendships, you still have to face those people every day. I feel like there's a responsibility to still be cordial. Like we're good people. I'm a good person. And so even if I run into somebody that maybe I don't see eye to eye with anymore, is it fake if I see them and am still cordial, or is it just being a good human? Question mark. What's your thoughts?
But I think, that trust and respect for every person, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. There's, I suffer greatly from loyalty syndrome. So there's a lot for if the hurt was to me, I I have a high tolerance level for that interaction. So I can be very friendly, cordial, very respectful. If the hurt was to you, things start dwindling quickly, right? Like I can be that cold front coming through. Like I didn't even see you as a person walking by, So
That's
I think that's where my loyalty syndrome fails me,
Yeah,
right?
that's the most fantastic thing about you. Not that you allow people to hurt you, because I don't like that, but you do that. The fact, though, that I have seen the hackles go up on you when you see somebody being harsh, cruel, disloyal to someone else. I have seen you like,
That protective instincts are high. And
yeah,
so where I feel like one of the nicest people I know, that all of my ugly will come out spilling out of me with a quickness when I feel like especially for a vulnerable population, right?
Mm.
People who just seem kind of like extra indefensible. Uh, so if there was a hurt that has been done, it's really difficult for me, and it's just truth telling, right? It's difficult for me to, walk through that and have, not that I would be rude, but that's definitely more of a challenge for me. If the hurt was to me, then that's much easier.
Well, I like that you say that, it's not that I'd be rude. I just need, because I think that loyalty is course correction. So everybody's going to get along. We know that, right? And so if in fact somebody came up to me and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Wendy." Well, because I love Wendy, I don't necessarily want to be in on that conversation, but I don't want to tell that person that they can't have their own feelings. And so I had an experience like this years ago, and I think it taught me a lot about that. There was an individual that I just thought had no irredeemable qualities. I thought that they were absolutely dishonest. I thought that they, came off as something that they weren't. And I didn't appreciate them at all. And so I'm in the company of another individual who I value as a friend. And I was saying, like, they were going on about this particular individual in all this positive light. And I was like, I don't like them at all, because I think that they pose to be something that they're not. And I think that they try to give the appearance of them being better at things than perhaps they are. And that individual did a great job. And they were like, well, I like them. And what that did for me was, they didn't say, stop airing your grievances, or I don't want to hear what you have to say and your feelings aren't valid. But I'm not going to join in on the conversation because I like them. And so, people don't have to pick friends.
Mhm.
And now you can have that loyalty thing of, well, you're either with me or you're against me. Like, if you're not friends with them, you can't be friends with me, which I don't believe to be true. I think that people can have a mutual friend, and the mutual friend may not like,
Mhm.
the other friend may not like the friend on the other side. But I liked that person made it very clear for me that, hey, I see things differently than you. And I'm okay with that. Like, I've always been a huge fan of dissenting opinion.
So I say the same. Like I always think I'm never going to say anything I don't mean. And so if you were really fond of a person and you go on and on about how great they are, and I just didn't have that same experience, I would not probably say, I think they're terrible. I would just say, I'm glad you had a great experience, because I don't want to say anything terrible or mean about the person. I'm just going to say what I mean, which is, I am glad that you've had a great experience, because I can mean that, you know? And
Yeah. But okay, so let me just show my ugly heart here. So there are exceptions to that. Like, I absolutely love, there are people in my life, you, my husband, my children, like, there are people in my life that if someone else was being cruel in their assessment, not just, hey, I don't much care for whatever, if they were being cruel in their assessment, or they had ugly things to say, or they had done something to injure that individual, like injury 3, not injury 1, like actual physical trauma, but like some sort of emotional trauma, you're dead to me. Like, that is one of those things that I will continue to be professional with you, because I am a professional. We will never be friends, because I cannot be friends with somebody that has
cross,
injured somebody I love. Like, it just will never happen. It will never happen.
that's crossing a line.
Yeah. And if you don't, you sit where you stand. If you don't draw a line, then you're just going to allow people to walk all over you, walk all over your friends. But if you draw a line and you allow people to violate that line, then you have demonstrated your lack of integrity for the things that you say you value.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deep.
So this is where I think, we talk a lot about like that emotional intelligence, right? How do you find that right approach, you
That's
know?
right.
And
That's right.
so, and I feel work in progress, right? That is something, it's like critical thinking, always an area that I can work on.
So when you say work in progress, sister, listen and believe, I fail. I fail. I get it wrong. I have to give tons of apologies. I have to backtrack. I have to play cleanup on aisle 9. Get it wrong. But I just absolutely focus on the fact that if I got it wrong, then I need to learn from it and do better next time, not keep getting it wrong.
And then as far as like the actual friendships, like sometimes when it's a season, right? Appreciate the good memories that we have.
Oh, I love the season.
Yeah. So it's just, that was that person was there for a time and it was great. And I'm gonna appreciate that we have good memories.
Absolutely. That you had them when you had them, that they were there when you were needing them, and they had you. But sometimes, like humans, we just grow up and grow apart, and it's just the reality of who we are.
Mhm. You don't get choices though. You're stuck with me forever.
I agree 110%. I mean, you've already shown my husband the word on your butt. I mean,
Yeah. It's like the gum, stuck forever.
that's right. Gum stuck. You didn't even hear me just then, or you'd have died. I said you'd already showed my husband the word on your butt.
Oh my gosh.
It
He's a
wasn't
medic.
really a
He's a
wart.
medic.
We just joke all the time that I wouldn't care if she sent my husband a picture of some thing on her butt. It would never hurt my feelings because he loves her as much as I do.
It's true. I check on Justin. We have stories.
Oh, we do. We have so
We-
much we can dig into here.
Yeah, yeah. Like the time that you were traveling for work and Justin was by himself and wasn't feeling well. And I was so worried about him. And so I was like, do I need to send somebody to check on him?
What
And
I
then
loved about you was I had a pretty big day that day, and you didn't want to let me know that something was awry. And so you managed everything in the background so that I could focus. And then you let me know that there was something awry.
right at the end of the day, after all your things, right? Because what could you do about it in the middle of the day other than
Except
be
worry.
worried? Right, right. So, uh, I think about those kinds of things because when there's nothing you can do about a thing, that's all I'm doing is just adding to the stress of the day then.
Yep.
So,
Things you can control and things you can't. And we're going to keep digging into stuff like this. Like I said before, if there's ever something you want to hear about specifically, I promise you we're old. We've been through a lot of this stuff. We can talk about it. Maybe send us a message, comment on our YouTube. You can like and subscribe. Make sure you're following us. Save us to whatever platform you're listening to. But more specifically, if you just want us to tell you how much we care about you, or if you want to tell us something that you want to hear about, orangegumpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next time, folks. Thanks for being with us.
see you next
Bye.
time.